At 60, I thought I had it all. A 7-figure portfolio, a name that turned heads in every boardroom, a private golf club membership. And then my daughter-in-law leaned over during my grandson's baptism and whispered, "He's more of a father anyway." As she gave my seat, the seat marked Grandpa, to another man. In that moment, the air left my lungs. I'd spent 35 years building a legacy of success, but somehow I'd become a stranger in my own bloodline. I had funded college tuitions, paid off mortgages, even set up trust funds. But I couldn't tell you the color of my grandson's eyes. I had photos of him in my wallet, but I couldn't recall the sound of his laugh. That baptism wasn't just a ceremony. It was a reckoning. It was the day I realized I wasn't invited into their lives. I was tolerated, replaced, forgotten. What came next broke me down, stripped me bare, and forced me to face the man I'd become. But I wasn't done yet. Redemption doesn't come from money. It comes from showing up. When it's awkward, when it's hard, when you're 30 years too late. If you've ever put your work before your family and assumed they'd wait for you, this story might just crack something open inside you. Stay with me. You need to hear what happened next. My name is Richard, and I'm 60 years old. 40 years ago, I made a promise in a dimly lit motel room outside Tulsa, staring at the cracked ceiling with my pregnant wife asleep beside me. I whispered, "My kids will never go hungry like I did." And I meant it. I grew up in the kind of poverty that teaches you to count canned beans and wear hand-me-down shoes 2 sizes too small. My father was a steel worker who drank too much and loved too little. My mother worked double shifts at the diner and cried in the laundry room when bills stacked higher than hope. We didn't talk about dreams. We talked about surviving the next week. When I met Diane in college, she was light where I was shadow. Her laughter cracked through my hard edges, and her touch made the world feel safe. We didn't have much, but we had each other and a plan. Finish school, get steady jobs, buy a house with a front porch, and maybe one day, a dock by a lake. She wanted Sunday dinners with grandkids running barefoot across the yard. I wanted to give her everything my parents never could. Wall Street wasn't in the original plan, but when I got an internship at a boutique investment firm in New York, it felt like fate extending a hand. Diane supported me every step, packing sandwiches for late nights, ironing shirts for interviews, smiling even when I missed anniversaries. Every sacrifice was temporary. That's what we told ourselves. The promotions came quickly. I became the guy who could close any deal. I got addicted, not to money, but to proving I wasn't that barefoot boy anymore. We moved to a bigger house, then a better one. 2 cars, private schools for our son, Matthew. Europe vacations, though Diane went solo most years because I couldn't get away. She stopped asking after the 3rd time. Still, we laughed. We held hands. We believed in the future we were building. Until I noticed she had started spending more weekends at her sister's, or staying in with a book when I suggested getaways. "Too much on my plate," she'd say. I chalked it up to stress. I didn't realize then that it was something else entirely. The first crack came on a Wednesday. Matthew was 8. He had his first piano recital, a moment he'd practiced for with trembling fingers and proud eyes. I was supposed to be there, front row. I even promised. But that afternoon, my phone rang. A hedge fund CEO I'd been chasing for months wanted to meet. Now. I stared at my calendar. I stared at the tiny note Diane had left. 7 p.m., St. Mark's Auditorium. Don't be late, Matt's first solo. I made a decision. "Tell him I'm on my way," I told my assistant. Matthew didn't cry when I came home late. He didn't even ask where I'd been. He just said, "Mr. Adam came. He said you probably had something important." He clapped really loud. Adam, our neighbor. Friendly, helpful, always around. I laughed it off. But that night, Diane didn't touch my shoulder when she passed me in the hallway, and for the first time in years, I slept in the guest room. Weeks became months. I blamed stress, the market, politics, anything but myself. I told myself I was still a good father. After all, I was paying for everything. I was securing our future. But the silence at home thickened. Matthew stopped asking if I'd come to his games. Diane stopped suggesting vacations. Adam's name came up more often. I told myself I wasn't jealous. That would be childish. But the truth sat in my chest like a stone. One Saturday, I came home early, trying to surprise them. I found Diane in the living room, sorting through old photo albums. Her face was unreadable. I asked if she wanted help. She said she was just organizing. Later that night, I noticed a small wooden box tucked under her side of the bed. Locked. I'd never seen it before. I didn't ask about it. I didn't open it. But I couldn't forget it either. That box would come to haunt me in ways I couldn't yet imagine. By the time Matthew turned 17, I no longer recognized the rhythm of our home. The laughter was quieter, the dinners shorter, and my name, once called with pride, seemed to dissolve into the air like steam off a forgotten kettle. Diane had become someone else. Not colder, just absent in a different way. She did everything a partner might do. Laundry folded, fridge stocked, birthday cards mailed. But her eyes didn't search for mine across the room anymore. Her voice, when she used it, felt like it belonged to someone talking to a colleague, not a husband. I tried to tell myself this was just a phase. Maybe we were both tired. Maybe we'd reconnect on the next anniversary. Maybe I'd surprise her with a vacation. But when I brought it up, Cancun, like our college days, she smiled and said, "I've already made plans with Lorna. Maybe next year?" Lorna, her sister, her new weekend companion. I nodded, told her to have fun, and returned to my laptop where a new fund launch demanded my entire soul. We passed each other like ghosts in a house we both technically owned. Matthew, meanwhile, had started locking his bedroom door. He answered me with shrugs or one-word sentences. When I asked about school, he said, "Fine." When I asked about sports, he said, "Not playing." When I asked if he needed anything, he said, "No." But Adam knew everything. "He's just easy to talk to," Diane told me one night when I mentioned Matthew's silence. "He listens." So did I thought. Didn't I? But I hadn't been there when Matt broke his wrist. I was in Tokyo, closing a deal. I hadn't cheered when he won his regional debate meet. I was on a flight to DC. I hadn't even met his first girlfriend. That was the night of the annual finance gala. Once I heard Matthew on the phone, laughing. He said, "Uncle Adam says I should major in philosophy, not business. Says the world needs more thinkers." I felt a flicker of something bitter rise in my throat. Not jealousy, exactly, but something close. And then there were the little signs. No more framed photos of me on the walls. No Happy Father's Day calls from Matthew. No mention of my name at dinners when I did manage to show up. Once I overheard Diane say to a neighbor, "We're doing fine. Just the three of us." 3. I was there, but not really. Then came the locked drawer. I was looking for a USB cable in Diane's study when I noticed it. The bottom drawer of her desk had a small brass lock I didn't recognize. Something about it nagged at me. That night, while she was out with Lorna, or so she said, I used an old trick with a hairpin. Inside were stacks of letters. My handwriting. My words. They were all the love notes I'd written her in our 20s, scribbled on diner napkins, notebook pages, backs of receipts. Notes about how she lit up a room, how I dreamed of growing old next to her, how she made me believe in more than survival. She hadn't thrown them away. She had preserved them, hidden them. Why? For a moment I thought it meant hope, that maybe buried beneath the silence and distance there was still something left. But the lock said something else, too. She kept them private, protected, as if shielding them from me. Trying to make it right, I booked a surprise family vacation to the Rockies. A log cabin, hot cocoa, a week with no work emails. I sent the itinerary to Diane and Matthew with a note. "Let's rebuild." Diane replied within the hour. "I already made plans with Adam and Matt. We're taking him on a college visit that week." That week? I checked my calendar. She hadn't mentioned anything. Matthew didn't reply at all, so I tried again. This time, for my grandson's birthday. I bought the newest Lego set, collector's edition, gift wrapped with a handwritten card. I dropped it off personally. Weeks passed. No thank you call, no text, nothing. Then came the gut punch. I ran into an old college friend at a conference in Chicago. He asked how Diane was. I said she was good. He paused. Then he said, "You know, I always wondered if you and Adam could make peace after everything." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He looked surprised. "I mean, after he married your ex, I just assumed." I stared at him, stunned. Adam had been married to Laura, my first love, the one who left me because she couldn't handle playing second to Wall Street. I hadn't known they'd been married. I hadn't connected the dots. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Diane's loyalty to Adam, his presence at every family event, Matthew's ease with him. It wasn't just that Adam was around. He was there to do what I had failed to do, be present. And somehow, that made him more than a neighbor. He was a mirror of everything I had abandoned. I wore my best suit to the baptism. Navy blue, freshly pressed, with the silk tie Diane had given me on our 20th anniversary. I even polished my shoes, a ritual I hadn't bothered with since my retirement party. This was going to be the day I reclaimed my place in the family. My grandson, Owen, was being baptized, and I would be there. Not just physically, but fully present. I arrived early. The church was a modest white building nestled beneath oak trees. The pews were already filling with extended family, neighbors, and co-workers. I scanned the front row and saw Diane sitting next to Matthew, who held Owen in a tiny white gown. Next to them, of course, was Adam. I swallowed hard and approached. Diane looked up and offered a faint smile. "Richard," she said, standing to greet me, "I'm glad you came." "I wouldn't miss it," I said. My voice was too formal, too tight. "I saved you a seat," she added, gesturing. Not beside her, but one row back. Behind Adam. I thought maybe I'd sit up front. I tried. Her eyes flicked to the space beside her, then to Adam. Then she leaned slightly toward him and whispered something I wasn't meant to hear. But I heard it. "He's more of a father anyway." The words slid like a knife between my ribs. My hands curled, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. I stood there, frozen, while someone brushed past me with a murmured, "Excuse me." I didn't sit, I walked out. The sun outside was too bright. I stood by my car, gripping the door handle, trying not to shake. "He's more of a father anyway." That phrase looped in my mind like a curse. Was that it? Was that who I was now? A failed father. A ghost with a bank account. I drove home but didn't go inside. I sat in the garage, engine off, staring at the wall until the light faded. That night, Diane showed up. She let herself in with her old key and found me sitting in the kitchen, nursing a glass of something stronger than regret. "You left," she said quietly. "You gave him my seat." She sighed. "It was just a chair, Richard." "No," I said. "It wasn't. It was my place. In that moment, it was every place I've been pushed out of, every memory I missed, every damn mistake I made." She didn't argue. That almost hurt more. Then Matthew walked in. He looked tired, older than his years. Owen was asleep in a carrier. Adam stood behind him, awkward, hands in his pockets. "This wasn't supposed to happen like this," Matthew said. "Oh," I snapped. "How is it supposed to happen? You baptize my grandson while I sit in the back like a stranger?" "You've been a stranger, Dad," he said. "For a long time." Silence. No one disagreed. "But that doesn't mean I wanted it that way," he added, voice breaking. "I waited for you. I wanted you there. You were just always busy." Adam stepped forward then. "Richard, I never tried to replace you." I glared at him. "Could have fooled me." "I told Matt no," he said. "When he first asked me to come to his games, his events, I said it wasn't my place." Matthew looked up. "I begged him. I just needed someone. You weren't there." The words didn't feel like an accusation. They felt like a confession. Diane finally spoke. "What I said in the church, it wasn't fair. I was angry, tired. I knew you'd hear it." "So you said it on purpose," she nodded. "Sometimes pain makes us cruel." I looked at them, my fractured family, each holding pieces of truth, of blame, of longing. "I want to fix this," I said. Matthew shook his head. "You can't fix the past, Dad. But maybe you can start showing up for the future." I turned to Adam. "You're not the enemy." He looked surprised. "Neither are you." That night ended with no hugs, no promises. But the door didn't close behind them when they left. That was something. And for the first time in years, I didn't drink to forget. I drank to feel. The Monday after the baptism, I walked into my old office on the 43rd floor, handed my assistant a sealed envelope, and asked her to print out one copy for HR and one for the board. The letter was short. 2 paragraphs. Clear. I was done. My boss called me into his office immediately. He didn't even read the letter, just looked at me and said, "What the hell are you doing, Richard? You've built this firm." I nodded. "And I've torn apart my family while I did it. Is this about the kid? The ceremony?" "It's about all of it." He scoffed. "You'll be bored in a week." "Maybe, but at least I won't be invisible in my own house." I walked out without shaking hands. Left behind my corner office, my company car, my board seat. I didn't feel free. I felt terrified. But for once, I was doing something that wasn't about performance or power. It was about people. That night, I texted Matthew. "Would love to come by and see Owen this weekend, just to listen." He replied with a cautious, "Okay." Saturday afternoon, I rang the bell to their modest home, no longer my home. Diane answered. She didn't smile, but she didn't look disappointed either. Small progress. Owen was in the living room, surrounded by Legos, towers and ships, scattered like his future. He looked up at me, unsure. "Hey, champ," I said. "What are you building?" He shrugged. "A base for the good guys." "Mind if I help?" He didn't answer, but he scooted over, and I took that as a yes. We built in silence at first. Then, slowly, he began to narrate who the characters were, what they were fighting for, why one of them had a broken arm. I listened. I didn't offer suggestions or try to fix anything. I just stayed. Afterward, I asked Diane if I could help with dinner. She handed me a dish towel without a word. I dried the plates she washed. The silence between us wasn't cold anymore. It was cautious, like a bridge under construction. Later that week, I did something no one saw coming, not even myself. I signed up for a father-son therapy program. It was Diane who found the pamphlet, accidentally, on the kitchen table during one of Owen's playdates. She held it up and looked at me. "You're going?" I nodded. Figured I've never actually asked Matthew what he needs. Just assumed I knew. Her lips parted, surprised, but she said nothing. The first session was brutal. Matthew didn't say much. The therapist asked questions. I answered too fast. Matthew answered too little. But it was a start. A few days later, I updated my LinkedIn profile. Former CEO, full-time grandpa, rebuilding bridges. That afternoon, I got texts from two former colleagues. One said, "Midlife crisis, huh?" The other, "Didn't know you were into soft branding now." I closed the app. Let them laugh. I wasn't doing this for them. Then came the unexpected twist. Adam called me. "Got time for coffee?" he asked. We met at a small place downtown, neutral ground. He looked tired, weathered. "I heard about the therapy thing," he said. "That took guts." I shrugged. "It took guilt." He shook his head. "No, it took a man who wants to change." There was a long pause. "I want you back in their lives," Adam said. "Fully. I've only been holding space." That stunned me. "You mean?" He nodded. "Matt's always wanted his dad, even when he was angry, even when I stepped in. I was the seat warmer. But it's time you take your place." The lump in my throat surprised me. "I thought you hated me," I admitted. "I did," he said honestly. "Years ago, for how you hurt Diane, for how you disappeared on them. But I also saw you trying, and now I see you showing up." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands shook slightly as I sipped my coffee. When I got home, I found an envelope tucked into my mailbox. It was from Matthew. Inside was a single photo. Me and Owen on the floor, building Legos. On the back it said, "Thanks for showing up." It started with 6 words. "Grandpa, you want to play with me?" Owen was sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, a plastic dinosaur in one hand and a half-built cardboard volcano in the other. His voice wasn't hesitant this time. It was direct, natural. I looked up from my coffee, caught mid-sip, and blinked. "Absolutely," I said, trying to sound calm. Inside, my heart was doing backflips. We played for an hour, maybe 2. Time blurred. I let the dinosaur lose, let him win the lava explosion game 3 times. He didn't seem to care about the rules anyway. What mattered was that I was there. Really there. That night, as I left Matthew's house, I noticed a stack of papers on the hallway table. At the top of the pile, half hidden beneath a phone charger, was one of my old letters. The kind I used to write Diane before email and business travel swallowed my romantic side. The paper was yellowed but intact. My handwriting, younger and more hopeful, stared back at me. I didn't touch it. But when I glanced toward the kitchen, Diane was standing there, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. It was a signal. She remembered. She hadn't burned the past. The next morning, I opened my laptop to find an email from Matthew. Subject: "This weekend." Message: "Thinking about teaching Owen to ride his bike. Want to help?" I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I was unsure, but because the invitation felt like a sacred thing, something earned, not owed. I replied, would be honored. Saturday came. We met at the park. The bike was red with training wheels removed. Owen wobbled, fell twice, scraped a knee. I winced each time, but Matthew didn't flinch. Let him fall, he said. That's how he learns. It hit me then. That's what I'd missed. Not just presence, but patience. Letting things happen without controlling the outcome. When Owen finally pedaled 10 feet without help, he turned around with a grin wide enough to split the sky. Did you see that, Grandpa? I saw it, buddy. You flew. We got ice cream after, all three of us. Owen got mint chocolate chip. I got vanilla like always. Matthew got pistachio, something I'd never seen him order. You always get that? I asked. Started a few years ago. He shrugged. Adam likes it. I nodded. Then something tugged at my chest. Hey, I said. Can I ask you something? Matthew looked at me warily. Yeah? Has Adam ever said anything? About me? To Owen, I mean. He frowned. What do you mean? I wonder how he talks about me, if he paints me like the villain. Matthew was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Actually, no. He's always defended you. Even when I was mad, he'd say, Your dad's not evil. He's lost. Said I'd understand someday. I swallowed hard. I didn't expect that. He knew I needed someone, but he never tried to erase you. He left space for you to come back. I looked out across the park where Owen was chasing a squirrel. My throat tightened. Back at the house, we grilled hot dogs and corn in the backyard. Diane brought out lemonade. Owen splashed in a plastic kiddie pool. The sun was warm, but not overbearing. There was laughter, not forced, but real. Later that evening, I found myself in the kitchen with Diane. We were alone. She handed me a bowl of strawberries to wash. This feels normal, I said. She nodded. Took a long time to get here. I know, I said, then added, Thank you. For what? For not throwing the letters away. She looked at me, soft but firm. I thought about it. A lot. But they reminded me who you were before the suits and flights and board meetings. Is that person still in there? She shrugged. He's starting to show up again. That night I stayed for dinner. Not out of obligation, but invitation. Owen insisted I make pancakes, like you promised, remember? I didn't, but I said yes. We cooked together, him cracking eggs and spilling flour, me flipping lopsided pancakes. We laughed. Diane poured coffee. Matthew took photos. 4 generations sat around that table. And for once, I didn't feel like an outsider looking in. I was part of it. Not perfectly, not entirely, but honestly. And that was enough. I started writing the letter on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. The kind of day that begs you to sit still and remember. Owen had just turned 12, and he'd asked me the week before what I was like as a kid. I didn't know how to answer, not truthfully. So I poured myself a coffee, pulled out a yellow legal pad, and began with the words I wished someone had told me decades earlier. Dear Owen, you'll grow up in a world that tells you success is measured in titles, bank balances, and corner offices. I know, because I believed it. I chased it. And by the time I looked around, I realized the rooms were full, but my heart was empty. I missed your father's first piano recital. I wasn't there when he fell off his bike or when he got accepted into college. I thought I could make up for it with vacations, gifts, and scholarships, but presence. Presence isn't something you can outsource. So here's what I want you to remember. Don't ever let your job teach you how to love. Let love teach you how to live. Show up, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it feels small. The Lego game, the school play, the midnight call for a ride, they're everything. Because love doesn't arrive with a grand gesture. It's built in tiny, quiet moments that add up over time. And if one day you ever feel like you're failing at it, start again. Just show up. It's never too late to be better. Love, Grandpa. I folded it, sealed it in an envelope, and tucked it inside the old wooden box Diane had once locked. She smiled when I told her. "He'll read it when he needs to," she said. I didn't know then how right she was. 20 years passed. Owen grew taller than his father by 17. He played guitar, wore flannel shirts like a badge, and listened more than he spoke. He graduated from college with a degree in psychology, then went back for his master's in family counseling. Said he wanted to help families speak before they forget how. I lived to see him open his first private practice. "Presence counseling," the sign said. I used to joke, "That name better come with royalties." He'd laugh. "Only if you join the team, Grandpa." Adam visited often in those years. We played chess in the backyard. Diane would bring lemonade like nothing had changed. But everything had. One afternoon, sitting under the oak tree that had grown old alongside us, Adam said something I hadn't expected. "You know," he began, "when Matt was 10, he asked me if he should start calling me Dad." I stiffened. "I told him no," Adam continued. "Told him he already had one. A good one. Just misplaced for a while." I looked at him, searching for resentment. There was none. "He believed you'd come back," Adam said. "I did too, eventually." Later that night, I asked Matthew, just the two of us over bourbon, if he ever regretted that choice. He said, "You were never replaced, Dad. Just paused. No one could fill your seat. We just kept it warm." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I only placed my hand over his and left it there. Years passed like wind through wheat, gentle, steady, inevitable. And then one spring morning, the house grew quiet in a way that told Diane I was gone before she even opened the door. I left in my sleep. No pain. Just silence. My funeral was small, just as I'd asked. No suits, no speeches, just music, stories, and Owen's laugh echoing through the chapel as he told some ridiculous story about me teaching him to grill. But the real moment came years later. Owen stood at the altar, older, steadier, a man in love, about to marry the woman he once introduced as the one who makes me forget I ever owned a phone. He reached into his pocket before reading his vows and unfolded a wrinkled, yellowed letter. "My grandfather wrote this to me when I was 12, he said. "I didn't understand it then, not fully. But now," he paused. His voice cracked. "Now I do." He read it in full. The room was silent, except for a few quiet sobs and Diane's soft smile from the front row. After the ceremony, as guests milled about, Owen approached Matthew, who was now grayer, wiser, and carrying a cane more for style than necessity. "I wanted you to know," Owen said. "We're naming him Richard, our first son." Matthew blinked. Dad would have liked that. "He taught me how to be a man," Owen said, "even if he got it wrong at first." They hugged, no words needed. Later, as they took a family photo, 3 generations of men and their partners, laughing in the golden afternoon light. Diane whispered to Adam, "Took a while, but I think we got it right." Adam nodded. Sometimes love has a long route. And in that moment, I like to think I was there, somewhere between the wind and the light, smiling. Not because I'd been perfect, but because I had been present.